My name's Daniel, and I'm 33 now. Some memories don't fade, they ferment. They get sharper with time. I don't talk about my childhood much. Not because I've forgotten, but because saying it out loud makes it real again. Like I'm 11, standing in that gas station parking lot all over again. Clutching a candy bar I couldn't afford. Watching my parents' tail lights disappear into the night. It was August, right before school started. We'd gone on one of those awkward family bonding trips my mom insisted we needed. Except bonding in our house meant pretending my dad's rants were wisdom and acting like my older brother Adrian's half-baked thoughts were genius. I was the quiet one, too sensitive, too soft-spoken, always in the way. That day, I spilled a Sprite in the back seat. Adrian, 15 and already skilled at dodging blame, smirked and said, "I did it on purpose." Dad pulled over at the next gas station, eyes blazing. "You're not a baby anymore," he barked. "You want to act grown? Figure out your own way home." At first, I laughed. I thought it was one of his twisted jokes. But then the back of the SUV slammed shut, and they drove off. I ran after them, calling their names, but my voice cracked and disappeared under the roar of engines. A clerk poked his head out, cigarette dangling, and looked at me like a stray left behind. That night, I slept behind the dumpster, curled up, heart racing every time a car passed. I counted the hours. 90 miles from home. No money, no phone, no one to call. The clerk refused to help. "Ain't a daycare kid," he muttered. I didn't cry. Part of me froze that night, the part that believed family meant anything solid. Next morning, I found a pay phone and called Mrs. Valencia, a teacher I trusted. She picked me up and drove me back to town. I told her my parents must have forgotten me. She didn't believe it, but she didn't push. She made sure I had food and told me I could always call her. When I walked in the front door, no one looked surprised. No one said sorry. Mom glanced up from her laptop. "Took you long enough," she said. Adrian, on the couch, muttered, "Should have walked faster." Dad never acknowledged it, just nodded at me at breakfast like everything was normal. That day, I stopped trying to belong. I finished high school like a ghost. Ate alone, studied alone. I left as soon as I turned 18, worked 3 jobs, put myself through community college, then transferred to a university across the country without telling anyone. I changed my number, never left a forwarding address, and for the first time, I started breathing on my own. The last 10 years have been mine, building a life they don't know a thing about. I became a research analyst, moved to a city where no one ever threw around "man up" like it could fix trauma. I have friends who see me as steady, loyal. I even adopted a rescue dog, Leo, a skittish little mutt who flinches at raised voices. We get each other. I never thought I'd hear from them again. But last week, a letter showed up at my apartment. No return address. Just handwriting on the front, loopy, dramatic, unmistakably Mom's. I opened it slowly, half expecting some legal threat or another passive-aggressive note about abandoning the family. Instead, it was a thick envelope. Inside, a wedding invitation from Adrian, engraved in gold lettering, all showy and traditional, the kind that screamed rented elegance and fake smiles. Tucked inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, handwritten. "Daniel, we know things have been distant, but Adrian is getting married, and it would mean a lot to the family if you could attend. He asked that we reach out personally. We hope you'll come. We'd love to reconnect. Mom and Dad." Mom and Dad, reaching out like nothing ever happened. Like they hadn't left me behind a gas station dumpster when I was 11. Like they hadn't once apologized. Like Adrian wasn't the golden boy I was never allowed to outshine. I sat there staring at the note. My fingers tightened around the paper until it crinkled. For a moment, I almost tossed it in the trash. Almost. But something in me paused. I flipped the invitation over. Fancy venue. Outdoor ceremony. Dress code. Formal. There was even a QR code to RSVP. As if I were just another distant relative. As if they hadn't taught me what it meant to be disposable. I looked at the note again. It would mean a lot to the family. Interesting. I wasn't the same kid they left by the side of the highway anymore. If they wanted me back in the picture, I had a few ideas about how I could frame it. I didn't RSVP right away, but I started planning quietly, carefully, like I always have. Some debts don't get paid in words. They get paid in presence. Sometimes showing up is the loudest thing you can do. The moment I saw Adrian's fiance's name, Sophie R. Alden, printed in embossed cursive on the invitation, I knew exactly what kind of wedding this would be. Upper middle class perfection. Long games. Live quartet. Personalized cocktail napkins with their initials. The Aldens were local royalty back in my hometown. Old money. Old gossip. Old grudges. I remembered Sophie vaguely from school, always dressed like she was headed to church or a job interview, even at 13. She never had to fight for attention. It was handed to her like an inheritance. So, Adrian landed her. Of course he did. Charming oldest son. Quarterback smile. Parents orbiting around him like he was the sun. My parents probably wore their approval like jewelry. I looked her up online that very night. She was exactly what you'd expect. Curated Instagram full of inspirational quotes and cappuccino art. Engagement photos under a tree that looked ripped straight from a wedding magazine. Buried in the tags of one post was a link to their wedding website. I clicked it. Welcome to Adrian and Sophie's big day. Countdown, 3 weeks. Location, Stonebrook Vineyard and Lodge. Dress code, black tie optional. Please arrive 30 minutes before the ceremony. Shuttle transportation available from guest hotel. We are so excited to celebrate with friends and family. Family, right? There was even a section titled The Love Story. Adrian had written it himself, or at least it was written from his perspective. So polished it could have been done by a PR firm. I'd always been the kind of guy to believe in fate. But nothing had prepared me for Sophie. Her grace, her kindness, the way she seemed to look at me and see more than the guy I used to be. More than the guy you used to be. I read that line 3 times. Then I remembered what he used to be. A bully in khakis, a liar with a halo. The same boy who shoved me into a pond at my 13th birthday and told our parents I slipped. I walked home soaked while everyone else ate cake. They laughed about it for years. I wasn't planning to go to the wedding. Not until I saw that line. Adrian was rewriting his own history, pretending there was no collateral damage on his way to manhood. And now the same people who left me behind were calling me family again. I didn't RSVP online. That would have been too easy. I went through an old college friend, Mia, who now works in logistics. She sent me a high-end formal suit, custom fit, midnight blue, vest straight out of a James Bond film. I even booked a room at the luxury guest hotel listed on the site, paying up front under a slightly different name. I didn't want them to know I was coming. Not yet. If they were going to act like the past never happened, I'd give them a taste of their own game. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sent a single email to the RSVP address. It was Sophie's. Looking forward to the celebration. Please don't mention I'm attending. I'd like to surprise the happy couple. No reply. Red marked. The week leading up to the wedding, I cleared my schedule, arranged a sitter for Leo, and packed light. Just the suit, polished shoes, and one old photo, folded, worn, of me at 11, standing outside that gas station with a backpack and a blank stare. Mrs. Valencia had taken it the morning she picked me up. She'd printed it years later and mailed it with a note. You survived. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but it felt right to bring it. Arriving at the vineyard the day before the wedding, it looked like a movie set. Rolling hills, polished wooden beams, fairy lights strung through archways. Perfect weather. Perfect people. Every detail screamed warmth and elegance, but the kind that was designed to keep people like me out. The rehearsal dinner was in full swing. I hung back in a quiet corner of the outdoor terrace, sunglasses on, suit jacket folded over my arm. No one noticed me at first. Then I saw her. Mom. She looked thinner than I remembered, like a slowly deflating balloon still trying to hold its shape. She was laughing, that brittle, high laugh that always sounded like she was trying to convince everyone she was fine. Beside her, Dad in a blazer, probably still carrying that same money clip in the inside pocket, the one he flicked open to remind us he was providing. They were talking to Sophie's parents, smiling, shaking hands, praising Adrian in that same syrupy tone that used to make my skin crawl. I didn't approach them. Not yet. Then Adrian turned. For the first time in nearly 20 years, our eyes met. His expression faltered, just a flicker, enough to say the unspoken. What is he doing here? Before smoothing back into perfection, he raised a glass at me, hesitated, then turned away like he hadn't seen me at all. But I knew he had. And more importantly, I knew he hadn't told them I was coming. I slipped out before the toast and walked back to the hotel, heart buzzing with adrenaline. My hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. They had asked me to come. They wanted me back in the family. And I was about to show them exactly what that meant, without even opening my mouth. Morning arrived. cloaked in mist and tension. I stood at the floor-length window of my hotel room, watching fog roll over the vineyard hills like a movie. I barely slept. Not from nerves. I wasn't nervous, but from memory. My mind replayed it all like a silent reel. Cold pavement behind the gas station. Mrs. Valencia's worried face when she pulled up. The silence at home when I returned. I ironed my shirt slowly, deliberately, pressing every crease like it was a scar I could flatten. Then I reached for the old photo, folded, faded, 11-year-old me staring into the distance, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. I slid it into my breast pocket behind a silk square, close to my chest. The shuttle to the vineyard was full of guests who didn't know me. Distant cousins, old neighbors, Sophie's college friends. Everyone chattered about the venue, the view, the dress. No one looked my way. I preferred it that way. When I stepped off the shuttle, the vineyard had transformed. White chairs fanned out across the grass like dominoes. A floral arch stood at center stage, thick with ivory roses and pale greenery. Classical music floated through the air, and waiters passed around glasses of Prosecco like it was liquid gold. The place was stunning. I stayed toward the back. I saw them again. My parents, now seated in the front row, beaming at guests, shaking hands with the officiant. Dad laughed too loudly. Mom clutched a bouquet of white lilies that didn't suit her at all. Adrian stood off to the side in a tailored tuxedo, talking to someone I assumed was his best man. And Sophie? She hadn't appeared yet. Then it happened. An older woman, elegant, silver hair, navy blue dress, approached me. She paused for a beat, then smiled politely. You must be Daniel. I blinked. I am. I'm Clara Alden, Sophie's mother, she said. Of course. I straightened slightly and extended my hand. She took it gracefully, but with something else, curiosity. Adrian told us you might be here. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. My guard went up instantly. He told you I might come? She nodded, her smile tightening. He said there's been some distance, but he hoped this would be a step toward healing. I could have laughed, but I didn't. He's an optimist, I said. She smiled again, this time a little awkwardly. Well, regardless, welcome. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. I watched her walk away, heels digging slightly into the grass. So Adrian had told Sophie's side of the family, but not mine. Interesting. The ceremony started like any other. Gentle music, guests shifting, officiant clearing his throat. Then Sophie appeared, glowing, perfect, exactly what you'd expect. The crowd collectively inhaled and held their breath. She walked down the aisle to soft applause. Adrian waited under the arch like a prince accepting his crown. I watched silently from the back row. The ceremony was short, predictable vows, nervous laughter. I do exchange like currency. Then the announcement, the kiss, the clapping. Just like that, they were married. The reception was where things started to unravel. Held in a massive glass-walled hall overlooking the vineyard. Chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls. Every table had orchids and floating candles. Guests found their seats via printed calligraphy cards. Mine didn't exist. I wandered casually to the table where my parents sat. Empty chair beside them. Name card marked for family. I hovered. Mom's eyes landed on me. Oh, you made it, she said, sipping wine without standing. Apparently, I said. Dad didn't speak. He looked at me, unreadable, then leaned back, like I was a question he didn't want to answer. I didn't see a seat card for me, I said calmly. Mom shrugged. Must have been a mistake. Maybe you're at another table. We didn't handle seating arrangements. Sure you didn't, I thought. I glanced around. Tables were nearly full, laughter rising in all directions. Then I spotted Adrian across the room, deep in conversation with Sophie and two older gentlemen in tuxedos. He saw me. He didn't smile. Instead, he walked straight toward me. Hey, he said, voice low. Glad you could make it. No thanks to you, I replied. He exhaled. Listen, I didn't think you'd actually come. But you invited me. I asked Mom and Dad to invite you. That's different. My jaw tightened. I figured you'd see the invite, toss it, and move on like you always do, he said. I looked at him. Tan, styled, confident. A man who'd never truly paid for anything in blood or silence. I came because I wanted to see if you remembered, I said quietly. Remember what? I didn't answer. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the photo, holding it up, letting it speak for me. His expression shifted, subtle but real. Eyes darted to the photo, then to my face. then back. He swallowed. That was years ago. Yes, I said. And you never said a word. Never told them to turn back. Never checked if I made it home alive. He looked around like someone might overhear. Daniel, it was one bad night. You were dramatic even then. I thought you were over it. Over it, I repeated silently. Something inside me stilled. I'm not here to ruin your wedding, I said. You can relax. He gave a short, hollow laugh. Good. But I am staying until the speeches. He looked at me like he wasn't sure whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. The best revenge isn't loud. It's surgical. I had a toast prepared, one they'd never forget. The ballroom lights dimmed as waiters cleared the last of the dinner plates. Guests buzzed in a champagne haze, some leaning back with full stomachs, others dancing in polite circles to a four-piece jazz band tucked in the corner. Adrian and Sophie sat at a long head table, names in gold script behind them. Everything sparkled, the wine glasses, the forks, even the people. A man in a powder blue suit clinked his glass. The room quieted. It's time for a few words from the people who know the bride and groom best. Polite applause. Sophie's father stood first, voice smooth, rehearsed, a blend of wealth and warmth. He talked about Sophie's childhood, her dreams, the first time she mentioned Adrian. He cracked a joke about Adrian being so charming. We didn't even realize he was trying to marry up. Everyone laughed. Next came the best man, Adrian's college roommate. Light, funny, stories about frat parties, Adrian's inability to cook, and how lucky he was to have found Sophie. The kind of speech you expect, a little heart, a little humor, no sharp edges. Then the MC took the mic again and glanced down at a list. And finally, we have a special toast from Daniel. The room went quiet. I shifted. My parents froze mid-sip. Adrian's jaw tightened. Sophie blinked in confusion. I tapped the mic once. It rang through the room. Good evening, I said, voice steady. I'm Daniel, Adrian's younger brother. Heads turned sharply. The words rippled through the room. I could almost hear the murmurs beginning to circulate. He has a brother? I wasn't sure I was going to come tonight, I continued. In fact, I spent the last few weeks deciding whether I should. You see, I haven't spoken to my family in many years. I got a wedding invitation out of nowhere. No call, no email, just a card and a note that said, "It would mean a lot to the family if you came." I let the words hang. Then I pulled the photo from my pocket. This is me at 11 years old. I held it up between two fingers. Guests craned their necks to see. This was taken the morning after my parents left me at a gas station, 90 miles from home. I had spilled a soda in the car, and instead of scolding me, they left. Told me to man up and figure it out. The crowd shifted. Uneasy glances. The faint sound of a wine glass set down gently. They didn't come back. They didn't call. I slept behind a dumpster. The only reason I made it home was because a teacher picked me up the next day. I never got an apology. Not from my parents. Not from Adrian. And until this wedding invitation arrived, I thought they were perfectly happy pretending I didn't exist. I looked at my parents. Dad's face was pale. Mom's mouth hung slightly open, like she was trying to summon a response, but couldn't find the words fast enough. Now, I'm not here to ruin anyone's evening, I said. Sophie, you seem lovely. Your family has been kind and welcoming. And Adrian, well, you've always known how to put on a good face. That line hit him. His expression cracked for just a moment. But I think weddings are about honesty, about truth. And it wouldn't be honest if I stood here tonight pretending we were ever close, or that I grew up in a house where family meant protection, not survival. The room was stone silent. People barely breathed. I was invited to this wedding to play a part in a picture-perfect day, a prop, really, a brother-shaped placeholder. I looked back at Adrian. Consider this my gift to you. I placed the photo on the head table right in front of him, a reminder of what family looks like when you turn your back on it. Then I turned slowly and walked away from the mic. No applause, just stunned silence and a few audible gasps. As I passed my parents' table, I heard my mother hiss my name, barely a whisper. My father started to rise, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I exited through the side of the hall and walked out into the cool night, the music now distant behind me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. I was free. But freedom is strange. It doesn't always come with peace right away. Sometimes it just leaves a silence behind, the kind that makes you wonder what happens next. I had made my move. The fallout was still coming. The drive back to the hotel was quiet. No jazz band. No clinking glasses. No performative laughter echoing off marble walls. Just the hum of tires on gravel and the low, persistent murmur of my own thoughts catching up with me. I didn't go back to my room right away. Instead, I walked down one of the vineyard trails behind the hotel, winding between rows of dark grapevines under the moonlight. With every step away from that wedding hall, the tension in my chest unraveled, thread by thread. I could still hear my mom's sharp gasp. See Adrian's carefully composed face fracture in real time. Feel the confused stares of strangers, the ones deliberately erased from the family photo. For most of my life, I believed I was a ghost in my own family. But tonight, I reminded them I was flesh, blood, and memory. And memory is dangerous, especially when the people around you rely on forgetting. Back at the hotel, a voicemail waited from an unknown number. "Daniel, it's Sophie." Her voice low, calm, but brittle. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that. I wish someone had told me. I just wanted you to know I'm not mad you said what you did. You deserve to, and I'm sorry. She hung up without leaving a number. That was the first apology I'd received in this years, and it wasn't even from my family. I left early the next morning. No breakfast. No drawn-out goodbyes. Just a short email to the front desk asking them to cancel the rest of my reservation and send the final bill. I didn't want to see the aftermath. I knew my parents. I knew Adrian. They'd either pretend it never happened or scramble to spin it into a misunderstanding. Maybe both. But I also knew the photo was still on the head table when I left. I kept the suit, tossed the tie, went home. Once I was really home, something strange happened. People started reaching out. First, my cousin Lila said she'd heard about the speech from someone at the wedding and wanted to apologize for never asking where I went after I disappeared. Said she'd always thought it was weird how no one ever mentioned me again, but assumed it wasn't her place to ask. Then came a message from Mrs. Valencia. She still remembered. Still had the photo she'd taken. "I always wondered what happened to you. I'm so proud of you, Daniel." I hadn't cried in years, but I did that night. Not loudly. Just a quiet, aching release. The kind you feel after holding your breath for too long, finally exhaling. I started sleeping better. Waking earlier. Found a new rhythm. My job felt easier, my code cleaner. Started writing again. Short stories, essays, anything to pour the storm in my head into something that made sense. A week later, I got an email from a woman who worked at a nonprofit for estranged adults, children who had been cut off, abandoned, or written out of their families. She said it was the most quietly powerful thing she'd ever heard. She asked if I'd be willing to speak at one of their private retreats. I said yes. That one event turned into 2, then 4. Then an invitation to sit on a panel at a university symposium about family estrangement and trauma recovery. I always carried the photo. I'd show it when I spoke, tell the story exactly as it happened. No embellishment. Just the truth. It was power. And with every person I helped, every story I heard, every hand I shook, I felt it grow. Not anger, but clarity. Certainty. While Adrian went back to his new wife and polished reputation, he didn't realize the ripple I'd started, or that I wasn't finished. It started with an email from Sophie again. "Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did your parents really leave you like that? At 11? I asked Adrian. He didn't deny it. Just said, "It's complicated." But you didn't sound complicated when you told that story. You sounded clear, like someone who's been carrying something heavy for a long time. If it's true, I need to know more. Please. Sophie had every reason to shut the door and move on. She could have ignored me, written it off as family drama, dismissed me as bitter or unstable. But she asked for truth, and I wasn't going to waste it. I replied, told her everything. No dramatics, no exaggeration, just the facts. I told her about the gas station, the silence when I returned, how I put myself through school, how my name was never mentioned again, how they'd rewritten the family photo like I was a smudge to crop out. I didn't blame her, didn't ask her to pick sides. I just gave her the truth. She replied the next day, "I believe you, and I need time to process this." They never told me. Adrian said he was an only child until we got engaged. They erased you. And now I'm wondering what else they've rewritten. Would you ever be willing to meet for coffee? Just the two of us. I said yes, but let her set the time and place. We met a few days later in a quiet cafe, 2 towns away from her and Adrian's home. She wore no makeup, no pearls, None of the bridal polish, just a hoodie and jeans, hair pulled back, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept. When she sat down, she didn't even say hello. She just asked, what else did they do? So I told her, not everything. Not the little humiliations, the 1,000 small cuts that never bled enough for anyone else to notice, but the big ones. Like when my mom forgot my birthday 3 years in a row and then blamed me for not reminding her. Or when dad refused to co-sign a small student loan, saying, you'll just waste it, while handing Adrian $6,000 for a trip to Cancun. Sophie's hand stayed wrapped around her mug the entire time. She asked questions, took mental notes. She didn't defend them. She just listened. Finally, she said, they called you a ghost at the wedding. That's how Adrian explained. You said you vanished when you were a teen. Said you always had a flair for the dramatic. I blinked. They used the word ghost. She nodded. I couldn't help but laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurdly perfect. They didn't lose a son, I said. They buried one. Sophie went quiet, then leaned in, voice low. You know what scares me most? I waited. She whispered, what if they do that to our kids someday? Sophie stood before she could say more. She said she needed time, said she was grateful, said she wasn't ready to talk to him yet, but she'd be in touch. That was 4 days before I got a letter in the mail. No return address again, just like before. But this time, the handwriting wasn't my mom's. It was my father's. Inside was a note, scrolled in rigid, uneven letters. Daniel, I don't know what you think you're doing. This isn't helping anyone. You're bringing shame on the family. Let it go. If you keep stirring things up, there will be consequences. We gave you a second chance to be included. Don't make us regret it. Dad. There it was. No apology. No regret. Just threat disguised as dignity. I sat with the note for a moment. Then I placed it next to the photo of 11-year-old me. 2 artifacts of the same legacy. And I smiled, because now I had what I needed, proof. Words written by his own hand, revealing exactly who he was, and still is. I scanned the letter, saved it to a secure folder, and backed it up to 2 cloud drives. Then I picked up my phone and called a journalist I'd met at one of the trauma panels. She'd told me once, if you ever decide to share your story, I'll help you do it right. She answered on the first ring. I'm ready, I said, but I don't want to just talk. I want to show them. She paused. How far are you willing to go? I looked down at the note, at the photo, at the name on the return invite that tried to erase me. All the way, I said. The article was published under the title, Left Behind, One Man's Quiet Escape from a Family That Tried to Erase Him. It went live on a Monday morning. By noon, it had already been shared thousands of times. The journalist I worked with, Julia Marino, had done her homework. She verified every detail. She interviewed Mrs. Valencia, confirmed the gas station incident, even tracked down my old landlord, who vouched that I'd put myself through school without family support. The story included the photo of me at 11, standing near the dumpster with a torn backpack and cracked sneakers. It included quotes from my speech at the wedding. It included the letter from my father, blurred just enough to protect privacy, and Sophie's permission to mention that she had reached out afterward. Julia was careful, precise. Not a tabloid piece, not a scandal hit job. Just truth told clean and unfiltered. And that's why it exploded. Not because it was loud, but because it was honest. Comments poured in. People saying it reminded them of their own estrangement, their own moments of being dismissed, replaced, or silenced. Others praised the restraint I'd shown at the wedding. A few guessed which vineyard it had been, though I never confirmed it. What mattered more were the private messages. Dozens of them came from people who had been downed, forgotten, labeled problem children by families that refused to take accountability. But the best one came from Alden, Sophie's older brother. Nathan. He didn't mince words. I always thought Adrian was fake, too polished, too rehearsed. Now I know why. I'm sorry they did that to you. My parents are furious. Not at you, but at Adrian. They feel like they were lied to. Used. They're meeting with Sophie today. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. 3 days later, another email arrived from Sophie. Daniel, I read the article. I saw the comments. I showed Adrian. He exploded. Said you ambushed him. Said you made it all sound worse than it was, but you didn't. You didn't even share everything. And that's what made me realize you're telling the truth. He asked me to choose. I chose. I'm staying at my parents' place for now. The marriage is being annulled. I'm sorry it had to happen like this. but thank you for not letting me step into that lie with blinders on. I read the message 3 times, then closed my laptop and sat in silence. For a long while, I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't gloating. I was remembering. Remembering the day I stood in our hallway at 11, holding a candy bar from a gas station, thinking, they have to come back. They have to. And now, nearly 2 decades later, the family that left me behind had finally tasted what it meant to lose control of the story. It wasn't over. 3 days after the article dropped, my parents called. I don't know how they got my number. Maybe through an old contact, or maybe they finally started paying attention to the places I'd spoken at. When I saw an unknown number, I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. It was my mom. Her voice was trembling, not with sadness, but with fury. Daniel, how dare you? We invited you. We tried to be civil, and you humiliated us. You've ruined Adrian's life. Sophie's parents are threatening legal action over the gifts, the deposits, the reputation. You think this is justice? It's cruelty. Vindictive, petty cruelty. I hope you're happy. I hope you're proud of yourself. Then my dad got on the line. His voice wasn't angry. It was quiet, almost defeated. You always were too soft. I should have known you'd grow into the kind of man who'd twist a moment into a weapon. Congratulations. You've destroyed your family. Don't ever call us again. Then he hung up. I stared at the wall for a while, wondering if the words would sting, if they'd echo like they used to. But they didn't. Because I hadn't destroyed my family. They destroyed the version of me that still needed them. And that was the difference. I stood up, walked to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and took out the photo one last time. The 11-year-old boy who had no idea what he would grow into. I smiled at him. Then I put the photo away. Not because I was burying the past, but because I had finally finished writing the ending. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments. First, whispers. Mutual acquaintances from my hometown reaching out. People I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Some messaged me privately with shock, others with guilt. I had no idea. I thought you moved for college. Your parents always said you were difficult. Then came the social media shifts. My parents, who'd spent years curating their perfect online image, suddenly went dark. Family photos began disappearing. The proud parents of Adrian and Sophie banner vanished. And the most telling sign? Adrian's entire wedding album was deleted overnight. No explanation. Just gone. I found out later that Adrian had taken a leave of absence from his company. Personal matters, the blurb read. But I knew better. Sophie had followed through with the annulment. She moved in temporarily with her brother and eventually returned to her studies. She sent me a short message weeks later. I'm rebuilding. It's messy, but it's mine. Thank you again. I hope you're doing okay. I was better than okay, actually. The nonprofit invited me to become a regular contributor. I began working with them part-time, helping organize outreach for other estranged young adults. I started writing, not just articles, but a book. The working title, Ghost Son. I didn't write it for revenge. I wrote it for the kid I used to be. For the kids still out there quietly packing a bag they'll never unpack because they're afraid even their footsteps are too loud. One day, I received a letter, not from my parents, not from Adrian, but from Mrs. Valencia. Still written in her loopy, generous cursive. Dear Daniel, I clipped out your article and read it twice. Then I put it on the wall of my classroom, right above the desk where I keep extra snacks for students who never bring lunch. I tell them about you sometimes, not by name, but your story. That sometimes being kind isn't just about helping someone up. It's about remembering them when everyone else forgets. I'm so proud of you. Love, Mrs. V. That one made me cry. The kind that cracks something open inside you. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was proving anything anymore. I wasn't a shadow. I was here. And now I was living. So when people ask me how it felt, standing in front of my family and showing them the truth, I just smile. Because the truth, the best revenge, doesn't come from watching them crumble. It comes from watching yourself rise in full daylight while they're still trying to rewrite the dark.